Hi, I want to talk today about working with anxiety, depression, PTSD, OCD behaviors, because I've helped a lot of people with these. I've worked with so many people with these. They are very common. So many people suffer from anxiety and depression, sometimes manifesting as OCD behaviors on obsessive compulsive, sometimes manifesting as post-traumatic stress disorder. So the reason I want to talk about it is because I just think it's important to know that there's always hope, that you don't have to necessarily live with this, that there are possible alternatives, and that you might consider energy healing as being one of them. So, because I've worked with so many people with this, I've seen many, many manifestations of how it presents itself. So one way that anxiety presents itself in the clients that I've worked with is that they will come to me and they'll say, I have heart palpitations, or I have a heart murmur. And I'll always ask, have you been to the doctor? Have you had this checked out? Because I'm not a medical professional. I don't pretend to be one. I never say that, you should only look at energy medicine. I always say, if you have some sort of physical condition, please check it out with the doctor. And very often these people with heart palpitations, or with the perceived band around the heart or band around the chest, which can even manifest as sometimes difficult breathing, panting, shallow breath, they have gone to their doctors and they have come back to me and they've said that there's nothing wrong. Very often people have had scans and there's nothing wrong with their chest or with their hearts. An extreme of this condition that I have worked with was one woman who always had an elevated heart rate, regardless of when she was very fit and she was doing aerobic activities in order to bring this heart rate down. She was simply unable to do so. Sometimes people come to me. I've had a woman with teeth grinding, and she came to me because she does a lot of teeth grinding at night, and the dentist was very concerned because of the amount of enamel that she was taking off her teeth. And obviously, this was a completely unconscious behavior manifesting during the night as a way of releasing her feelings of fear and anxiety. I've helped people with OCD conditions, obsessive compulsive disorder. One of them is trichotillomania. This is pulling the hair out of the head or the eyebrows or the eyelashes in order to cope with stress. And another type of OCD behavior I've helped with people with is extreme black thoughts, compulsive thoughts, where totally irrational thoughts, where things, what happens if so and so, what happens if this, what happens with that, and being unable to release those thoughts or stop having those thoughts, or going round and round and having those thoughts and not being able to stop those thoughts. I've worked with a little girl who had, her mother was very concerned with her, about her, because her father had OCD, and the child started to manifest questions that she would ask her mother. She was very small, she was 7, and the questions were just inappropriate in terms of, mummy, what happens if this, mummy, what happens if that. So her mother was anxious about her manifesting these kind of behaviors and these kind of thoughts, which she was expressing verbally to her mum. Something that I've worked with is post-traumatic stress disorder, where people have been in armed holdups in their home, or have been in some sort of childhood abuse situation. People in the armed forces often present with types of PTSD, which manifests as anxiety and panic attacks because they don't know how else to express their fear or their trauma. And so that's the way they do it. Of course, they don't want to do it that way, but that's what happens for them. I had a woman who worked with me who had manifested extreme trauma and anxiety because her breasts hadn't developed properly. So there's many, many ways that anxiety can manifest, and depression as well. I've worked with people whose children have died, or a woman whose child died young. Obviously you never wish as a parent to be the parent of a child who has died. Very traumatic. It's very, very sad. And I've also worked with someone whose father committed suicide when they were about 15 to 16. And this led to huge manifestations of OCD behaviors and anxiety, PTSD, anxiety behaviors. So I've worked with people all around the world, and I've got a selection here of the feedback that has been sent to me. I get emails, I get WhatsApp messages, I get Facebook Messenger messages about how people are feeling and what's happening for them after our sessions. So some of these sessions were mini sessions, which I used to do. Some of the sessions are one-to-one sessions, and some of the sessions are done in my healing circle. And most of the sessions are more than one. I'll say it again, I've said it before. Energy healing is not a magic bullet. You do a course of energy healing as you would do a course of going to the gym to get strong muscles or to change your body shape. You wouldn't go for one session and expect that years of abusing your body would result after one session would result in noticeable changes. It's incremental changes over time. So please bear that in mind when I give you this feedback. Very often the feedback is very promising initially, but then more work needs to be done later on. So just quoting now from the printouts I've done of the messages sent to me. I continue to see an improvement in energy levels and a big shift in my anxiety levels. I have reduced one of my anti-anxiety medications as well. Now, this was not something I suggested she do. This came as a surprise to me. In fact, I was delighted. But obviously, I would always say, please don't ever change any medications without your doctor's authority, and say so. So this person says, Jen really helped me with a lot of anxiety and resentment. I was unable to function on a day-to-day basis because my head was swarmed with unwelcome thoughts. And from the work Jen has done, she has helped me to push past those. I'm now able to compartmentalize and deal with unwelcome and irrational thoughts a lot better. Things that would usually push me into fight or flight no longer do that. I am more relaxed now. My heart rate has always been around 98 beats per minute in resting position. Even when I was very fit, it seemed like my heart had a mind of its own. Since the treatment, my heart does not race like before. It is down to 85 beats per minute in resting position. Then this woman came to me for palpitations, and I followed up with her and said, how are your palpitations? And she said, yep, I've definitely noticed a marked reduction in palpitations. Another one, this is off my website. She says, I slept better and woke up feeling a lot less anxious, sitting at around a 4 out of 10. Now, what I do with my clients is we measure energetically and we measure on a conscious level. So I ask my clients, what is your rating out of 10 when we start working? And when we finish working, or when the client decides it's time to move on to something else or stop working with me altogether, we measure it. We measure it every time we work together to see how it's dropping. So she says her anxiety is now sitting at around a 4 out of 10. So that's dropped quite considerably, because when we started, I think we started at about an 8 out of 10. She says the awful dread is being replaced with feelings of optimism and love for the world. For the first time, all this started or re-emerged. I really feel I can beat it. This person says, she talks about performance anxiety. So she was teaching children yoga, and she found it very hard. She used to get very stressed and anxious every time she had to do the teaching. So Genevieve cleared some emotional blocks using the emotion code from my early teen years that were causing me to feel anxious about teaching yoga to kids. The results have been phenomenal. I no longer get the sickening anxiety before I teach a class, but feelings of excitement. It has been life-changing, as this was affecting my daily life. And that's wonderful. I was so delighted for her. And she she makes commented that I released emotions from her childhood, from her teenage years. Now, I have no idea what caused those emotions. I just know that, and this is true for all of my client experiences, I connect with the client and I ask, what can I release that is in your highest good and best possible outcome relevant to the issue you want help with? And the things that come up are often most of the time, trapped emotions. In other words, feelings that we couldn't deal with when we experienced them. And so we shut them down. We just put the lid on them and basically we stored them. And they then, after a while, there's more and more and more of them. And then that starts affecting our behavior. It starts affecting our physical health sometimes. This is my belief system based on the work I've done so far. So now she had trapped emotions in her teen years, and I have no idea what occurred in the teen years. I just know that I was sent to 15 to 16 and I was asked to release humiliation. I was sent to 15 to 16 and I was asked to release overwhelm. Now, I don't know what caused those feelings, and that's none of my business. It's not my job to know. It's just my job to release them so that there is more energetic space and room for movement and air and for energy to flow easily through the being. This person says, and I was working on her Bell's palsy, and she got Bell's palsy, and I believe that the reason she got Bell's palsy was because she was carrying a great deal of post-traumatic stress disorder with her from things that had happened in her past. She says, I have had no anxiety attacks since last November when I worked with her. I have had no panic attacks since last November. I have struggled with a dread feeling for so long that I think I miss it. It has not been with me since November. My dread was a part of who I was and is not a part of who I am now. Then another person says, she just talks about, she wrote me a testimonial basically where she says, I was struggling with certain situations, pain, discomfort, and phobias. I had been plagued with feeling down, feeling anxious without being able to work out why. I also struggled with nightmares and with broken sleep. After the first session with Jen, she discovered a lot of emotional baggage from my very traumatic childhood that was still impacting my day-to-day life. So we released this baggage and she found that her nightmares stopped or changed. She had different dreams, but they weren't the same nightmare dreams. And she just started generally feeling much happier. So those are a selection. That is not all of them, because honestly, I've done a lot of work with this and I love working with anxiety and depression because it's so responsive. It's just so wonderfully responsive. People do have wonderful shifts in their perceptions of how they feel and what's happening for them. So I would love to help you. I would absolutely love to help you if you have anxiety or depression. I would carry you very gently. I would hold you with love, and I would feel tremendously privileged to work with you. So reach out. It's never too late. There's always an opportunity. Things are not written in stone. Things can change. They might change for you. I'd love you to reach out. I really would love to help you.